YouTube, that everybody subscribe to our YouTube channel. I know it's not the primary focus early on for what Section 1904 is. That's mostly been the podcast. It's been the Discord channel. It's been the website. A lot of great writing there from John. So hopefully people are enjoying that. We are dabbling a little bit in YouTube. So if we would make one kind request, it would be if you don't mind subscribing to our channel, that would be beneficial for us, just for reasons that are kind of nerdy and a little bit vanity related, but it would help us in terms of algorithms and all that sort of stuff. John, did you have a good weekend?
I did have a good weekend, which is why I'm dragging a little bit this morning. There was a lot of fun this weekend. We had my wife's best friend was in town. We went out to a fancy dinner. We did a lot of stuff, and in between all of that, there was just sports on sports on sports. So I'm loaded for bear, but dragging a little bit, despite 3 cups of coffee this morning, which is one more than usual. You think I'd be all fired up, but nope, just kind of back to sleepy normal.
Three's just getting you back to your baseline, huh?
Yeah. Which I had to make 2 pots because we have an extra person in the house, which means I think there's more coffee waiting for me downstairs as soon as we finish this podcast.
All right. Well, maybe if you need a 4th cup of coffee, nobody here is going to judge you. I'm on my 2nd cup because I've been sitting in this seat and speaking into this microphone and looking into this laptop since about 9 o'clock this morning. The holiday thing has kind of disrupted the schedule. Mondays are usually our weekend recap, the free episode for everybody. If you're not a subscriber to Section 1904, this is the opportunity for people to check us out, listen to us, decide, is this something that I want to support? Do I want to support local independent media? Hopefully the answer is yes, but obviously there's got to be a quality product associated with that. So Mondays are where we try to shine. Now, it's Tuesday today. John just mentioned, I don't think you're alone. I think there's probably a lot of people that stumble back into their workplaces on Tuesday and they're not quite 100% because they had a big weekend. I did not have a big weekend. I had a work weekend. As a matter of fact, yesterday I went paddleboarding with my wife and I even literally said to her, I said, do you feel like we even had a weekend? And the answer was no, we've had no weekend. We both had to work Friday. Saturday, as mentioned, I had my fantasy draft and she had some stuff going on. And then Sunday was, the drive to Los Angeles and LAFC and SDFC, which was amazing, which we're going to talk about. Then it was the drive home. So, yeah, we did not. And then she's on a plane at 8 o'clock this morning. And I'm right into podcasting at 9 o'clock this morning. And then literally time for a cup of coffee, refill my water. And here we are with Section 1904. So, and we have a lot. And there's just a lot. So I feel like we had 2 totally different weekends, John, but I'm glad somebody on Section 1904 was able to get out and about. I think you may have had some cocktails, if I'm reading the Discord channel right, that you went out there and imbibed a little bit, I want to say, on Friday.
I did.
Is that accurate?
Let's see. Friday? I don't even remember Friday.
There was the rumor on the Discord channel was that you got after it pretty good over the weekend. Very proud of you.
That's entirely possible. There was definitely some cocktails on Saturday night. I don't specifically remember the cocktails on Friday night. But
my weekend was totally upside down with the match being Sunday instead of Saturday and a 3-day weekend. I just was what day is this? I don't even know.
Yeah, not to mention you had probably a 5-hour fantasy football draft in the middle of your weekend as well. 5+ hour fantasy football draft, but we do have a lot to talk about. I will say, I got an email either this morning or last night from a subscriber who was like, "Why don't you guys talk more about the wave? You should talk more about the wave." And it made me think about the fact that you always talk about filling 3-4 hours of radio time every day is really hard. You end up talking about the same things kind of over and over and over again. We do this podcast for about an hour every day, and it's we don't necessarily have enough time to talk about everything, which is a good thing because it means we can pick the stuff we have actual takes about and passion for and all of that. But to that person who I did reply to already and anyone else who's interested, I do have plans to somehow get wave content out of Section 1904, even if you and I don't find time to talk about it, because I imagine we're going to spend at least an hour talking Padres and SDFC today.
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say that because somebody was asking me what it's like. They're like, "Oh, it must be great. Now you're not doing 3-4 hours a day, but you're doing an hour." I was like, actually, sometimes it's harder because the hour is expected to be really, really good.
Yeah.
Where when you're doing 3-4 hours of radio, sorry to my friends and former colleagues there, but you guys know this is true. You have just giveaway segments. You're just like, I don't care. I know not it's totally unrealistic to think that every segment's going to be good when you're doing 3-4 hours a day. It's unrealistic to think that every hour is going to be good when you're doing 3-4 hours a day. You're sort of just spinning your tires on certain subjects.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. And you just learn to accept it. And you could be a perfectionist and it can irritate you the way it used to irritate me. Because if you give away a segment, then you're giving away somebody to another, there's a whole mental gymnastic thought process you can go through. But when you're doing just this, you're like, hey, it better be good. It better be good, especially when you're asking people, to support it financially. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's nothing against Wave. As a matter of fact, we were paddleboarding yesterday, and we were paddleboarding, saw somebody who was wearing a Wave hat. I was wearing an SDFC hat, and I was like, what a great time is it? Isn't it such a great time to be a football fan, a soccer fan in this town?
Yeah.
And the two of us just sort of sat and talked a little bit about Alex Morgan, who her jersey retirement is coming up this weekend, I want to say.
Sunday,
I think it's this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's either Friday or Saturday, whatever the 3-day, not that it was a holiday, but I mean, it was a holiday, but it wasn't a break.
It's Sunday.
Yeah, like we were talking about it. So yeah, I'm I haven't watched as much. Sometimes games overlap and I'm so dialed in. I mean, I haven't even had a ton of access to Padres this weekend just because of the time commitment with SDFC. But
you didn't miss much, Darren.
Well, I know, and I just also think big picture. I'm not saying this is the case in San Diego. They had another sellout yesterday. The 4-3 loss, was it, to the Baltimore Orioles?
Mm-hmm.
But you can just sort of see, right, from like the overarching approach to sports. And again, I'm not somebody that wakes up and watches Sports Center. I'm not somebody that goes to FS1 and like is gravitating towards takes, but you can feel just baseball's national relevance fading into the horizon of the sports landscape. Can't you? I mean, once college football kicked off, it was like, all right. Now we have something new to talk about. So, I mean, if you're not going to get it there. So you have to get it here. You have to get it locally is my point. Not that, yes, thank God football's arrived so that we have to do baseball talk. We're always going to do baseball talk, but you can kind of feel that on a national level. Once the ball got kicked off on Thursday into Friday night, John, it was like, all right, well, we'll talk about baseball maybe in October.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. When I was looking for stuff for Front Row Seat this morning, first time I had done that since Friday morning. And you go around to like I check the locals, and then I check some of the, Substacks and newsletters that I like that come out. And then I check the nationals, right? The Athletic, ESPN, The Ringer, Yahoo Sports. And almost all of the nationals, not The Ringer, almost all the nationals had one baseball story this morning. One. And you know what? It was about the Padres. And it was basically Jason Adams' knee exploded. The Padres are screwed. So that little fun story is probably over. And I was like, man, what a brutal, like, baseball basically has one large story this morning. And that story is goodbye Padres, which, like, I'm not saying goodbye Padres too, but it was funny that everything else was like college football, pro football, get your NFL power rankings. Bill Belichick's screwed. There's even like a little bit of F1 because it was an F1 race this week.
U.S. Open, right?
U.S. Open
between Naomi Osaka. I mean, that was a kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and yeah, the one baseball story sneaking through was Jason Adams' knee explodes or quad explodes or whatever it was.
Yeah, again, this is not indicative of anything. Just because you said it and it reminded me. Here are your top headlines on ESPN.com as of 11:23. Buckeye season, Buckeyes, number 1, LSU, Canes, rise, Tide falls. Agent, Parsons' first choice was to be with the Cowboys. Hall of Fame basketball coach, George Raveling died. Wow, 88 years old. Mike Tomlin sees Hayward playing despite drama. Don't even really know what that's about. Pagula back in the U.S. Open semis. Giants unofficially list Dart as Wilson's backup. Belichick, the Heels were better than what we were tonight. 2-time IndyCar champ Power out at Penske.
Where's the baseball? It doesn't exist anymore.
It's on the My Games tab on ESPN.com.
Ugh.
It shows me that the Orioles and the Padres are playing at 6:40 tonight, and that the Padres are minus 175. So if not for My Games, the teams that I follow on ESPN, there would be no baseball until about 3/4 of the way down. There's a September prediction, best record, playoff races, and more. But this morning, to your point, I did see that Jason Adams was one of the headlines. And it's terrible. Injuries in sports are just awful. There's nothing you could say. An incredibly important piece of the bullpen. I think I saw it this morning on Baseball Reference, John. He was fourth on Team WAR on Baseball Reference, which is, the Padre relievers, again, take WAR, leave it. Don't know how everybody feels about wins above replacement. We know it's not perfect. 4 of the top 11, now 4 of the top 10, I guess, are relief pitchers for the Padres, which is interesting. But, what can you say? I mean, it's just, it's. I went back and I watched it just to see so we could discuss, and saw what it was that he had to say post game, and you give him credit, that he was there. He got carted off the field. He was still in uniform at the end of the game. They addressed the severity of the injury almost immediately, which is not normally something that the Padres do. They talked about what it was, that it was this muscle, this quad muscle tearing, and it's going to be a long process, much longer than the season has left, and it's a big loss. And injuries are terrible, and everybody in sports knows that you just have to deal with them at some point, don't you?
Yes. That being said, by the way, just sidetracked because you mentioned it. Do you know who's number 1 and number 2 in WAR on the Padres, according to Baseball Reference?
Well, only because I looked it up this morning.
So you do. Who's number 1?
Yeah, Tatis.
Which is surprising to me. I would have assumed it's Machado. Number 2 is not Machado either. It's Nick Pivetta, which is kind of amazing. And I'll get back to Nick Pivetta, but it felt like after the trade deadline, the Padres were operating with kind of like they did the beginning of the season, a lot of luck, just like when they needed a hit to drop somewhere to score some runs, they were getting it. And it was usually like Laureano or O'Hearn or Fermin putting it together. And it was like, man, they just there's this influx of talent, and that's great. But it felt like the vibes were good. The luck was working its way out. Darvish was pitching well. Nestor Cortez had figured it out. Michael King was coming back from injury. Everyone. And then King has his knee thing. He's out. Jackson Merrill gets hurt. He's out, although he's back now. This thing happens with Adam on a day that Tatis misses, where they say, oh, he's got some tightness in his hamstring. Who knows how that works out? And Xander Bogaerts breaks his foot, and he's out probably the rest of the regular season, if not the playoffs. It feels like whatever luck they had has completely ran out. And by the way, close to August, now we can state these as real stats. Manny Machado's OPS for the entire month of August, which he was still trying to figure out, was 590. If you want to know whether or not that's bad, Freddie Fermin was pretty terrible for the last 2 weeks of August. His August OPS was 621, better than Manny for the entire month. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit 1 home run in the month of August. His OPS was not terrible because he walked a lot. But the issue with this team somehow has come back around. We went wow, this team has a good enough starting rotation, the deepest and best bullpen in all of baseball, and a lineup that goes 1 through 9. And now they have giant holes in the lineup. Machado is either, so beat up that he can't hit. Fermin apparently took on too much workload. He can't hit anymore. So you got two holes in the lineup, not to mention Tatis is not really a threat the way he was before. He's just kind of a threat to get on base, maybe hit a single most of the time. Bogaerts being out means, I guess, Iglesias and Tyler Wade are going to be in the lineup all the time. All of a sudden, you're back to having 3 or 4 spots in the lineup you don't trust. David Morgan has turned into a gas can since I hyped him up.
We're going to blame you on that one, John. That's all your fault.
I'm blaming myself. Adam's hurt. So the bullpen, as deep as it was, is not as deep as it was. The bullpen's getting worse. And the starting rotation, I had to write this down this morning because I was I just have to look this up. By the way, David Morgan's ERA since I hyped him up is over 10. On Friday, Nestor Cortez pitched as the starting pitcher, 3 innings, gave up 3 earned runs, and got pulled after he threw 66 pitches. On Saturday, Nick Pivetta goes 5 innings, gives up 2 earned runs. That's not terrible. He gets pulled having thrown 83 pitches. On Sunday, they start David Morgan. He was fine. And after about an inning, They bring in Kyle Hart combined. I'm combining them into one starting pitcher because that's essentially how it was supposed to work. They went 3.1 innings, 3 1/3 innings. They gave up 3 earned runs, together combined for 58 pitches. Dylan Cease pitched yesterday, 4 innings, 2 earned runs, 84 pitches. I'm starting to come around on the argument that I've seen from other people, which is Schilt has leaned on the bullpen so much that it's going to break down, which it seems like maybe is happening. And B, he has babied his starting pitchers so much that now he's in a position where he can't trust them to fight through and get up to 80, 90, 100 pitches, give him 6 tough innings, whatever. He doesn't trust them to do it because he never let them do it. He missed the part of the year where you're supposed to like try that and see how the guys respond. He was too busy just trying to win every game. Grit squad, right? Which look, they're still not out of the divisional race. They're still probably going to win about 90 games. They're still probably a playoff team. Like, this is not a full-fledged Mike Schilt is terrible, but some of these problems that Mike Schilt is complaining about in the post-game of every loss are problems that he's created himself. And I don't know whether or not he realizes that, but I hope he does.
Well, yeah, this is one of the conversations that we had about Bob Melvin when he was here, because this is how you earn the nickname Sleepy Bob, is you just allowed your starters. But that was how he was wired. And it's a lot more complicated that now with all the data that you have about second time, third time through, right? Randy Vasquez is a great example of this as well. When you and I were like, well, why not just see what it is that he can do there third time through? Okay, I get it that on a small sample size here, it doesn't look great, but maybe you can condition a guy during the regular season. I think a lot of these things, though, I think if you get across the finish line, a lot of these things become sort of non-topics. I do. But you do got to get across the finish line here without losing anybody else. And that is a problem. And I will say that Jason Adam, although he has appeared in 65 games, which I think is the third most of any reliever, the most for any Padre reliever, tied with Jeremiah Estrada. But it is, I think, third most in all of baseball for relief pitchers. Third or fourth, somewhere in that range. I can't remember. Just took a peek at it this morning. That was a fluke. That was a fluke injury to me. That was, sure. He planted it. It's not like, oh, well, what did you think was going to happen? Of course his shoulder was going to blow up. You throw him out there every damn day. It wasn't that. I think that was a little bit of a fluke. I think managing regular season and managing postseason, these are different concepts. And I think you're right. And I actually thought that for as much time and as much oxygen is spent analyzing some of these Mike Schilt press conferences, Mondays was different. Mondays was a different. Now, I'm guessing that the tone was due to losing Jason Adam, who seems to be not only a valuable piece of the puzzle, but inside that clubhouse seems to be a very likable figure. Never met him. Don't have anything against him. Don't know anything about him. But just judging it by the way he is revered by teammates, it feels like he's a pretty popular player there. They'd be upset if anybody had gone down in that structure, but feels like because it was Jason Adam, it was a little bit different. But the tone of Mike Schilt's press conference was different yesterday. And I actually jotted some of this down. I don't have any audio, but I jotted some of it down because I watched it and it stood out to me because AC was asking him about Dylan Cease and about Cease's inability to go to deep into any of these games. And Mike Schilt, John, said, quote, and this is a quote, "It's clearly a concern." I've never heard Mike Schilt say that. Have you? Now, why would you wait till September 1st to say it? I don't know. It's clearly a concern. And then he rattled off a bunch of numbers about starters only giving you, 12, 14, 15 innings or whatever it was, blah, 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 blah. And then he was, then later in the session, he was asked about Tatis. And he kind of was like, at first he started saying things like, hey, it's a grindy stretch. That's his exact quote. It's a grindy stretch. He said something about having to travel and play a day game. But then he was like, lower half soreness. And he made it seem like this was not his decision. Like he was not involved in the decision about Fernando Tatis Jr. at all. If you go back and listen to it, number one, when Dennis is so good at asking some of these questions because he knows exactly what it is that he's aiming for. He was asked about Tatis and he says, well, he can explain it better than I can. As in other words, go ask him. Go ask him. And then he said something about, there's tightness there. Dennis said, well, we saw on the telecast that he was grabbing at his hamstring. Is that what the deal is? It was just described as lower half soreness. And Schilt's like, yeah, that was the decision from my understanding. again, I really didn't have anything to do with this. So, if you need more information, I'm not the guy because I wasn't part of the decision making to leave him out of the lineup. I was told that he needed a full day off. And if you want any more information, you can go find that guy in the clubhouse if you want. But it was a different tone from him yesterday. And again, I think some of it was circumstantial because of what it was that just happened with Jason Adam. And you combine that with losing 3 of the last 4 and where you are in the season, and you're just trying to drag yourself across the finish line. But yeah, it stood out to me, that yesterday's tone was just a lot different. And people who don't like shit will say, well, who gives a fuck? And I understand that too, because he went into the weekend being a bit of a douche to AC about some of the stuff. Like, how dare you ask me? What are you, Kevin AC? Like, how dare you ask me about Luis Arraez batting second again? Who are you? You've covered losers your whole career. I'm Mike Schilt. He has that sort of sense to him, right? Which is irritating. But, it was different. It was a lot different yesterday. But I also think him saying that the C stuff is clearly a concern is that's different than anything I can remember hearing him say over the last couple of months.
Okay, this brings me to a good point. A stat you didn't mention that I do think is worth mentioning.
You're saying it's a good point? Okay, interesting. I like that. You're declaring that you have a good point before you even make your point. Why don't you let us be the judge of that?
No, I'm saying you made a good point.
Oh, okay.
This is a good point that you've made, and it's leading me to my next thing. So a stat that you did not mention worth mentioning is they are 2-6 in their last 8 games, and the last 4 of which have been against terrible teams, of which they've gone 1-3, I think. They lost that series to the Twins, and now they're in danger of losing this series to the Orioles. And I wanted to ask you, I went back and I found this quote. This was the quote you gave me right before you left for Mexico, right before you left for Cancun, right before the trade deadline. You said, and I've quoted this a couple times on this podcast, quote, "There's 2 more goddamn months of this. We will hate this team again." And I referenced that quote when they went up to LA and the Dodgers smoked them, because at that point we hated this team again. Now we hate them again, a second time, since your quote. And I think people are starting to lose hope. It feels like luck is running out. I'm seeing lots of talk about players only meetings need to happen, et cetera, as much as fans don't know shit about what is going on in a clubhouse or what needs to be done. But my main question to you is, how do you feel about this team right now? And is it different than how you felt about them a month ago when you made that quote?
I mean, I still think it's a team that I think is capable of performing in the postseason. Again, will this team get in its own way in some capacity? Perhaps. But I saw a Dodger team go running through the postseason last year where they essentially had no starters. But, I do think some of the fatigue and some of what it was that you've talked about a little bit earlier is starting to take a toll. By the way, I forgot one important thing that Schilt said yesterday in his post-game press conference, because he was asked about Michael King. He was trying to say, like, I don't know what's happening with my starting pitching right now.
Yeah.
And he said something, and this is a quote. Again, I typed it into my little phone. I don't know what the depth of what he can give us is or when.
Gee, that sounds like he's talking about Musgrove.
Yeah, King was Schilt was like he was going through it yesterday in the post-game press conference. Again, normally he's sort of combative and blustery and a bit arrogant. How dare you nerd, AJ Cassavell? How dare you, Dennis Lynn, you troublemaker? I know you and your colleagues at The Athletic hate us. Don't you know I'm Mike Schilt? I came up in the Cardinals organization. I think the game like a catcher, even though I never played. And he's got a lot of that to him, and not just the way he goes back and forth, but the way he even looks sometimes. How dare you, John Gennaro? Who are you?
Yeah.
Pipsqueak. I'm a guy who came up in the Cardinal. And it was not that. And maybe that's a little alarming, or maybe that's just the circumstances of the day. Or, there's a lot. Like, because he was Tatis and Bogey and Cease and Adam and King and yeah. I still think the team is going to have a chance. I mean, I just do. I don't know. Maybe I'm naive. I don't like the trajectory that it's on. I wish the finish line was a little bit closer so that nothing else can happen, because it feels like, oh man, there's always something lurking around the corner here with the Padres. Like, is something else going to happen now? You know, how much more are we supposed to be able to take? Where's the good news, right? Where's the good news? It's just been this steady stream of bad news. But you know, and you know, the road record stuff. I mean, I still will say, sort of as an abstract thought, not guaranteeing yourself home playoff games. That's man, if that's the way that this thing keeps going, and it's not a real run at a division title, or it's not a real run at the top wild card spot, and you're just, you know, the road record is the road record. I tend to think something that Gavin Sheets said it reminded me of something Tim Flannery said back in 2012, which is, you know, that team, because it played in such a great home field environment up in San Francisco, that when they would go to places where there's 21,000 people in the stands, they you know, the energy didn't exactly match what it was that they were used to. I saw Gavin Sheets said something to that effect over the weekend, and it's an excuse and nobody wants to hear it. So, you know, but it did remind me of that with Flannery. He's like, our home energy is so different than it is when we're on the road. Our players kind of go to sleep in some of these places where there's 20,000 people in the seats. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of that. I don't know. But, you know, postseason will provide a lot of energy. So I'm not too worried from that standpoint. But yeah, I mean, it's a grind, man. I mean, this is, you know, this is the time of the season now. It's like you just, if you're within sight of the finish line and you think you're a postseason team, you're just trying to get across that line, right?
Right.
I feel like you're sort of ready to say it's not.
This is where I'm at,
and like this is just heading in the wrong direction, and it is starting to collapse.
This is where I'm at. And it's gonna be incredibly rude and selfish, but we're gonna get there, and I'm gonna be rude and selfish into a podcast microphone, and that's gonna be fine. I do, before I get there, want to give Gavin Sheets credit for that quote, because Gavin Sheets didn't just say, like, we don't have the energy on the road because we don't have our fans with us, whatever. What he said was, we get our energy from the fans at home, and we need to find a way to get that same energy on the road. It's the exact same thing Flannery said.
Oh, good. I'm glad you saw the quote. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I saw it, and I was like, wow, that was just pretty honest from Gavin Sheets. Good for him. I am getting to the point where I feel like, especially after the Jason Adam injury, and I understand the Dodgers won a World Series basically with no starting rotation. That being said, I feel like maybe I'm wrong about this. I feel like Dave Roberts managed the Dodgers playoff run last year differently than Mike Schilt will ever manage a Padres playoff run. I don't think, and part of that was desperation, right? Dave was backed into a corner. He knew, win this or lose your job. He got desperate. I don't think Schilt feels that desperation, at least not yet. So I don't see a situation where he's like, screw it, 4 bullpen games. I think my confidence about this team, assuming Tatis doesn't all of a sudden explode and hit like 7 home runs in September, my confidence in this team is almost entirely tied to Michael King and whether or not Michael King can come back and look like a viable starter. And if Mike Schilt is already like, we don't know what we can get from him. And did you see the quote from King where he said the reason that he felt like he had to get the knee drained was because he was actively changing his pitching motion to account for the knee pain, and he thought he was going to do harm to his arm by changing his motion.
And he felt like the knee injury was a product of him trying to protect the arm.
Right. When you get to that point and you're this close to free agency, like, I just don't see Michael King coming in and giving 1,000% effort for his, you know, the last couple weeks of this Padres team. I'm starting to get real concerned that we might never see Michael King again in a Padres uniform. And
yeah, I mean, that's not Musgrove. Musgrove got paid. Musgrove will go out there. If you told him that his arm would fall off at the end of the postseason, he'd be like, yeah, fine, good. What do I don't care. Let's go.
Yeah.
King not the same. And I don't think that makes King a bad guy.
No, it makes King a guy where he's in the same spot Musgrove was in 3 years ago, right? Where every time Musgrove pitched, there was like an interview with him going, Kevin Acee going, why don't I have a contract yet? Like, he wanted the money so that he could give 100%. Michael King, if he doesn't give 100% to the Padres, I'm not going to fault him. He needs to be healthy when he hits free agency for, I think, the first time in his life. So, yeah, I'm just starting to get concerned. And look, I said a while ago that like a lot of this team is going to go as far as like Michael King and Yu Darvish's health can take them. Darvish, I think he's not as good as the highs, he's not as bad as the lows, but you can't really count on him for a lot right now. And if there's no Michael King, it's just like, I don't know, man. How far can you get with Nick Pivetta and grab bag of starting pitchers? If you're Dave Roberts, maybe far. If you're Mike Schilt, I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, I'm not giving up hope, but the Michael King thing is starting to freak me out just because like starting pitching starting to look real bad, and you know the bullpen can only look worse when you lose your all-star setup man.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing to wonder out loud here, and maybe this isn't the way that people on the inside are wired, but I think the thing that's fair to wonder about is how far do you want to push? Like, how much do you want to push right now with 24 games to go, when you're mathematically essentially guaranteed a playoff spot?
Yeah,
I think it's at 99% still, according to all the projection sites. We know what it is. Couple of games behind the Dodgers, couple of games behind the Cubs. How much do you want to push and scoreboard watch to try to secure? Like, this is a real, this is like maybe it's just me thinking about it, but the financial impact of hosting playoff games is a big deal. But how much do you want to push it now, given that again, I just rattled off 3 or 4 different things that Mike Schilt was talking about yesterday with Fernando Tatis Jr. We could talk about Jackson Merrill returning and pinch running, not pinch hitting, pinch running in the game. We could talk a little bit about Xander and what you're going to do there. Like how much do you really want to push it? I know we'll talk about SDFC at some point, but they walked into LA over the weekend and they're dealing with a ton of injury too. And I was like, I wonder how much they're really going to push this, because they've already guaranteed themselves a playoff spot, season number 1. And, the answer was they really went all out to win that game. And I'm glad that they did. And we'll talk about it later. But, with 24 to go, I do wonder, how much of the gas pedal, how much are you putting on the accelerator here to try to track down the Dodgers, where you can't control it? How much are you trying to track down the Cubs? Or are you just saying, we're in a pretty good spot here. Let's remember big picture where we are. Let's kind of coast into the postseason, or let's try to go all out, trying to be a top seed. I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know that they operate as simple as that. That sounds very reductive, the rationale. Like I'm saying, like it's either this or that, like it's binary, it's choice. But you will have choices to make, right? Michael King coming back is a great example. Fernando Tatis Jr., do you walk by Fernando's locker and say, Fernando, we need you? I know you're not right, but we need you. Or do you go, it's better that you're right for the playoffs, right? I wonder how these decisions are actually being made right now, given that you have about a half a dozen of them, at least, that we're aware of. Do you really hit the accelerator right now, or do you just kind of say, listen, we're mostly secure in our playoff spot, so maybe that should be our priority more than balls to the wall, let's go? I don't know.
Yeah, this is what I want to leave you. This is where I want to leave this conversation, and we can transition to SDFC out of this, which is going to be a much more positive, happy conversation. Which is, it's September 2nd. They started playing spring training baseball in February. I've been asking this question all year, and I still don't think there's an answer for it. What is the identity of this team? And I don't think Mike Schilt can just say they're a grit squad because I say they're a grit squad. What is the identity of this team? And I think at one point the identity of this team was watch out for that bullpen. And I think that's getting shakier now, despite the fact that they added Mason Miller. Suarez a little shaky and Adams gone. And it's that's 40% of what you thought was going to be a dominant bullpen just gone. What is the identity of this team? Are they fun? Are they fast? Are they are they scary with the power? Do they get a lot of hits? Are they on base a lot? Do they run up the opposing starting pitcher's pitch count really fast? I don't know. It seems to change almost from day to day what their identity is, which to me says there is no actual identity. And it's your question of what do we do with the last month of the regular season if the ticket is essentially already purchased for the playoff? I think your identity is what tells you what to do. And they still don't have it, right? Am I wrong?
No, I mean, I would have to say now, just top of my head, what is, I still think this bullpen. I think a lot of teams would trade places with the Padres with Estrada and Morejon and Miller and Suarez. You know, this is why before the trade deadline, when there was a suggestion out there, well, you've got all these bullpen arms, you should trade on. You and I were aligned on that. You and I were like, absolutely not.
Absolutely.
And you
not.
brought up the great example about the NBA. When you have 3 superstars, what you're securing is that one of those guys will get hurt. You have 2 superstars, which should at least put you in the conversation if those guys are good enough to win you a title. Same thing that we were saying here. Like, don't subtract from your strength. If anything, add to your strength. And this is exactly why. And it's terrible with Adam. He's great against the Dodgers when he pitches for the Padres. I jotted this down. They're 48-17 when he's in a game. Like, that's a really, really big deal. Now, that's sort of causation correlation. I get it. But, 6 scoreless innings against the Dodgers in 2025, last year in the postseason, like, that's a guy who's a real weapon against them, should you cross paths with them again at some point later on this season. Again, that's a long ways away. But I'm still glad. Like, I would still look on paper and go, like, Estrada, Morejon, Miller, Suarez, pretty good to me. But, again, just try not to incur much more damage between now and the end of the season is something I find myself thinking about even a little bit more than the day in, day out, like what's going on tonight with you, Darvish. Well, you better go 6 or 7. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. Is the priority you, Darvish, going 6 tonight, or where are we on that conversation?
Well,
but, I would say it's that. And like, listen, like these guys have got to, I mean, I know it's obvious to say, but your big money players got to play better.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. And, a big part of that is Machado and Tatis and, Bogarts is hurt. But like Merrill, I know you're coming back from injury, but like they need you to be pretty good, pretty fast.
Yeah. Merrill, who led the team in WAR last year, by the way.
Yeah. Suarez.
We were on that topic subject.
Suarez, Miller, Morejon, and Estrada. That's 4 guys. Even if you think that you can pitch those 4 guys every single game, which you can't, but even assume you could, if you were pitching them every single game, you wouldn't want any of them pitching more than like an inning every single game. That means you need your starters to go at least 5 innings just to get there. Because otherwise you're giving innings to Wandy Peralta and Yuki Matsui and David Morgan, may his potential rest in peace. And as I said like 20 minutes ago, in the last 4 games, they have had 1 pitcher get to 5 innings. 1, Nick Pivetta. And like, honestly, over the last 2 weeks, I think Darvish got there once and Cortez got there once, but like Cease never gets there. And if they pitched Randy Vasquez, he wasn't going to get there. David Morgan and Kyle Hart aren't going to get there. Nestor Cortez didn't get there. Like, if you need your starters to go 5 innings and that's a problem, that feels like an Achilles heel. So that's
not just us. It's not just the Discord channel, John. Now this is Mike Schultz. I don't remember if he said this before, and if he has and we've missed it, then I'll be the first to say, oh, okay, maybe it's not as big a deal as I'm making it out to be. But when he's asked about Cease, and he goes, it is clearly a concern. He wasn't talking about innings for starters and Cease specifically. AC asked the question. He goes, it is clearly a concern. I don't remember him saying stuff like that about a player like that.
Well, he
and I don't know that there's a solution. I don't know that he's challenging him to do something that maybe he's incapable of doing. I say incapable, not that he can't, but you know what I'm saying? He just hasn't shown any ability to do it. And I don't know when King's coming back. I don't know. And even when he does, like, I don't know how I'm going to use him. I'm not saying Schultz is a sympathetic figure because I think you're right. I think he's a contributor to some of the things that you and I are talking about. But again, the whole demeanor, the facade was down yesterday for him. And, again, maybe that's just because they had to go out there and they had to say, wow, one of our most popular players inside of this clubhouse, just had his quad muscle roll up into his groin in front of 45,000 people. That's exactly what it was. That's what he said. He said in the postgame he felt his quad muscle roll up. It's like, that's disgusting. Like,
hurts so bad.
And that poor guy, like driving him around on his fucking cart on the field. I was like, where are they taking him? I felt so bad for the guy.
Taking him back to his car, go home.
He was still in the clubhouse with his uniform on at the end of the game, which was like,
I know.
okay.
And like, what's
they were driving him to the hospital on a golf cart. I was like, where are they taking him? I wanted a helicopter or a drone to like follow him around through the streets.
I saw Marty's video. I think I included it in front row seat. And like I like posted front row seat, and like an hour later, I was like, was he standing? Why was he standing? Like, sit him down. I think he was standing while the media was attacking him.
Tough, man. I mean, it's bad. I mean, it's, the rigors of 162, again, like totally as an aside. That's why, that 2020 thing, like, give me a break. I mean, this is what you have to deal with. Like running through a regular season is so hard.
It's a marathon.
It's really hard to do. And it's a really, really hard sport. And, when things like this happen and you combine them with some of the other stuff, it's really easy to get down. But, I still will say, I don't know how to explain what's happening with Manny. I mean, I don't, I know we can focus in on some of the decision making but I just wonder if we're not there yet, how close are we to, why don't we just try to get everything lined up and get everything right? Probably not going to win this division. Maybe the Cubs can do the annual Cub thing where they fall apart. But, what's more important for us is trying to be as healthy as possible going into a postseason series and get guys as right as they possibly can be. Maybe it's too early for that. I don't know. It just is something I'm thinking about, John. So, I mean, I will say Mikey Vargas has talked about this, and it surprised me because he was asked, like, when do you start thinking about the postseason? And he's like, well, we already have started doing certain things. We do not want to wait until the end of our regular season to fix whatever it is that we think we need to fix between the end of the regular season and the start of the postseason, because we're only going to have a week to do that. So we're going to start tinkering with certain things now to try to get things set for the playoffs since we've already clinched the spot. I was like, whoa, Mikey is the king of, I'm just present. I'm just thinking about the next match. I was like, whoa, okay, that's different. I don't know where the front office for this team is or where the coaching staff for this team is. I mean, how much more do you want them to go out trying to track down a team that – can they track the Dodgers down? I guess they can, but I don't know. I don't know, John. That's all I find myself saying about this team anymore is I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. And
I know it's not a satisfying answer, but like, I don't know.
I know. And that's the reason I keep coming back to, like, I just don't feel like there's an identity, and I feel like you need an identity to believe in them, but they don't have the identity. And so it's so hard to believe in them. So you just end up with a lot of, I don't know, a team that I do have faith in, a team that does have an identity. Let's talk about the party on Sunday night in LA.
Wow. What a night. I mean, what a night. Can I just start also by saying this? I love BMO Stadium. You and I have been there together.
It's a fantastic stadium.
It is fantastic. I do think it is the standard in Major League Soccer. I've been to Portland. Portland's great. October 18th up in Portland. There are other great venues around the country, but this for me is just, it is, I love it. Maybe it's because I've been to big games there, so every game feels like it's a big game. And it felt like a big game coming up on Sunday night for the reasons that everybody was aware of. It's LA, LAFC, SDFC, only a handful of games to go. It's a true 6-pointer, John, like a real 6-pointer match. LAFC, there was some chatter around them during the week that this is the most important regular season match that we have remaining. Oh, and by the way, Son Heung-min's home debut. I think I saw all 1.5 million jerseys that were sold on Sunday. They were everywhere. Everybody was wearing the number 7 Sun jersey inside of BMO Stadium. But I love that place. I really do. I know LA and LA love. I don't care. I love that place. It feels big when you're in there. And I don't mean big structurally. It's 23,000 people, but it just feels like a big event inside of that building. It is an incredible atmosphere.
Yeah. So I didn't get to watch much of this game live. And so I went back yesterday, actually, and rewatched it on Apple TV, which is a thing that you've told me is possible. And when I was rewatching it and I was detached from the moment, it was a lot less fun, but I was detached from the moment, and so I was noticing other stuff. And the 3152, their supporters group,
3252, yeah.
3252, they come across so loud on the broadcast. And I was like sitting there going like, I know I've heard Frontera SD on the broadcast, but I don't think they were this loud. And I don't think you heard them this loud throughout the game. But like, there's just like, you can't experience the game without them being the background and the beat of it. And it's just so cool. And it's like, it's a really cool venue. And when stuff happens, you hear the crowd explode. But just, yeah, a great venue. I've been there, I think 3 times, once or twice with you, once or twice with Craig Elston. And every time it's been awesome. So, and
the sound stays in. That's the difference.
Yeah, we're Snapdragon. It kind of, because it's not the stadium that's like curling over the top. It's just kind of straight up. Okay.
Another canopy conversation.
Another canopy
just what everybody wants in San Diego.
Can't get away from it.
But the sound stays in there, and you can feel it. Like when I say you can feel it, you can feel it. So it was interesting. Our broadcast location. It was not a broadcast booth. They set us up. So as we're looking at the field, 3252 is to our left. I mean, I can mention the section, but it's not going to do anybody good. It's between 132 and 133. We were on the ground level, not the ground, but like the first concourse area.
Okay.
They set us up there. We had some stanchions around us to keep people away, which, we were on our own. And we had an amazing view of the field, amazing view of just incredible sight lines from where we were. Thank you to the staff at LAFC. They were fantastic to deal with and always have been. They were great. And man, every time Son had the ball on his feet, the whole crowd would stand up, and you would just see thousands and thousands of number 7 black jerseys at the same time standing up. So he was box office. What I love most about this, I understand that the game was promoted and the game was sold for a standalone match on a Sunday night as Son's home debut. We understand that. LAFC, big stage, bright lights, all the stars are coming out. Yeah, they're playing this team from San Diego, which is on top of the Western Conference, but still, this is about Son. It's a really, really big deal. And it is. It's good for the league, objectively. And he's a fantastic player.
Yeah, we'll get back.
But what an opportunity for LAFC, for SDFC to go in there and just say, oh, bright lights? Spotlight? Oh, okay. We've got this guy named Chucky Lozano. He scores the first goal. Anders Dreyer makes his MVP case. It got to the point where during the broadcast, Max Bretos, who's doing the game for Apple TV Plus, says, is this his MVP moment?
Yeah, I saw
Talking
that.
about Anders Dreyer when he scored his 14th goal, had an assist in the match, which was his 18th, 32 goal contributions now. This guy, I looked this up this morning, 11-0 when Anders Dreyer scores a goal. Incredible. Scores away from Snapdragon Stadium. I'm not sure what to make of that, but 12 of his 14 goals have come away. You want to know why they've had so much success on the road? They were without a true number 9 again. I don't know what's going on with Marcus Ingridson. Disappointing that he was unavailable after the impact he made against San Jose 3 matches ago.
Yeah.
They had a back line kind of in tatters, John, in that they had to play Chris McVeigh, a center half for the majority of the season. They had to play him out wide.
Yeah.
They play him Bombino on one side, and then he switches, and then he goes back. By the end of this match, they were suffering for the last 15, 20 minutes. They're playing 5 defenders. They have Yepe, who's such an amazing player. Yepe and Pedro Soma as a double pivot. They have 3 players up top who are kind of midfielders, but guys that are just going to run if a ball gets behind the defensive line. It was incredible. And like big-time stars, MVPs, Golden Boot winners, a lot of attention on LAFC, and SDFC just goes in there and steals the show. Absolutely stole the show. Now, listen, this could have been a totally different match if Denny Bouanga scored in the 25th minute. And they left a goal on the field, I would say. But that was playoff soccer. For guys that have no experience with it, that is every bit of playoff atmosphere. Close game, converting your opportunities, taking advantage of the chances that you have because you might not get a bunch of them. LAFC didn't do it. SDFC did, and that was the difference.
Absolutely, that was the difference. Very quickly before I get off of Sonny, my favorite Spurs player of all time. I had not watched him before this game in MLS. I know he played a game on the road, right? I saw like highlights, but I didn't watch it. I know we've said this about Messi, and it's not true in the Messi sense, but Sonny in MLS, it just looks different when he has the ball. It just looks different than every other player that's on the field when he gets the ball. And no shade to Chucky or Anders, who are amazing, but Sonny, I mean, he hit one off the post that probably should have got it. It seemed like he should have had 4 goals and he had none. And part of that was he hit the post. Part of that was Dos Santos, who what
that save, man. Wow.
I mean, he had an unbelievable game. And
got a beer shower at the end of it too. 32-52 just
showered him with beer.
Gave him an early shower at the end of it.
I bet he loved that. I'm gonna go in the direction I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna come back around to the shit kickers that are our goal scorers. But at the end of the match, at the final whistle, and it wasn't the only time, but I noticed it at the final whistle. Mano Dua looked like his heart was exploding out of his chest. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like the whistle went off and you could see how much this moment meant to him. Like it was like oh my God, I can't believe we just did that. I can't believe we're here. And I can't believe we just shut down Sonny's moment and made it ours. And like that young, energetic, like youthful exuberance for moments like that is really contagious. You talked about it last week. They had the picture of him like jumping on top of the pile with just this giant smile on his face. I love that kid so much. I loved the save he made. I don't think it was a Sonny shot, but when he's like literally laying on the ground, getting in front of the shot.
It was Boanga again. Yeah.
Just an awesome player, an awesome game. And look, Chuki's always been, I'm going to say always. I'm a person who didn't know he had existed before January of this year. But throughout this season, when he does something well, he loves to be the shit kicker a little bit. And you know, him putting his hands behind his ears, like, I want to hear your boos, like, I'm shutting you up, was great. Anders is turning into that a little bit too, where he scores a goal and it's a little bit of like, look up to the crowd. Like, yeah, you didn't know who I was, did you? Yeah, I'm going to win the MVP now. I'm going to beat out Messi for the MVP. That's who I am. And like, he gets the ball and I know it's a breakaway, but it's basically 1-on-3 and he scores the goal anyway, or 1-on-4 if you want to include the keeper, and he scores anyway. And it's just like, the team has so much talent and they play together and they're just so well coached. And you said it perfectly. Like, this almost is like they play the possession game to give themselves more opportunities, but they take advantage of opportunities better than like almost any team they play against. Most of the time when they win, it's like, yeah, maybe they had 1 or 2 more opportunities, but they converted so many more opportunities in front of them than the other team. Just a really, really fun team. Fun team, up and down.
Very fun. And they, you know, there's so many moments here. Like, you know, I could do an hour on this just because there were so many moments. You mentioned Dua at the end of the match. I also noticed that Yepe was a guy who was so emotionally invested in the game through all 90 minutes. He had a tackle on Son on the near side from us. Was in the first half because LAFC was going left to right, but he had a tackle on Son that I thought was incredible. I thought Patty McNair, unfortunately, Martinez had to come off the field, but that was a bone-crunching tackle that Patty McNair had. It was clean. It was clean. The player had to come off. I don't know what the injury is, but that was a clean play from Patty McNair. Good to see him out there. Late in the match, late in the second half, they bring in Ian Pilcher, who hadn't played John in a couple of weeks.
That's right.
And he was bodying Son on a play on a 50-50 ball that was right up. It was right in front of me. I was like, look at Pilcher. Pilcher, like a couple of guys under the basket going for a rebound. And he was bodying Son. And you know, it was like, here's a guy, this guy was in college. You know, life comes at you so quickly. Mano Dua was in college a couple of weeks ago. And now he's squared up 1v1 with Denny Boanga, who's a 3-time All-Star and a Golden Boot winner. Like, you know, it's a really incredible thing, the thing that's going on here with these players. They don't make any excuses. They haven't had a number 9 in a couple of weeks, you know, like their back line at times is in tatters. Came into the match, like no fullbacks, you know, like Leo Duru isn't ready to start and play. You're without Willie again, and Verhoeven and Harangi and Franco, and I'm probably missing one. I'm sure that I am. Loffelson started the year playing fullback. So you're like, well, Chris, we need you over there. And Luca, we need you over there. And,
yeah,
you know, we'll just piece it together and we'll just search for ways to get this done. And, you know, in that environment, it was, again, we'll never know what would have happened if Boanga scores that second one in the 25th minute, but he didn't. And then brilliant buildup, Anders, Chuki deflected, gets it past Lloris, And then second goal, it felt like you just broke their spirit, and then you just held on defensively. And they just played as good a defensive game over the final 15, 20 minutes of that one. They changed themselves tactically, structurally. They had combinations that we've never seen before. And it was just all hands on deck. It was a thrilling night. It was a big win, maybe the biggest win. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's still more to come, but it was an incredible performance from them. The 600 fans that showed up, and I did find out it is true what happened, that LAFC decided that it was going to renege on the deal, and they were going to take away some of these supporter seats, and then they jacked up the price, and the club did step in, and the club did pay the difference. Now, what that difference is I'm not sure, but it was not an insignificant amount of money that SDFC played to allow the supporters to go. And I was there when they all came in, 6-7 buses. They went to LA Live, took a bunch of pictures. Everybody behaved for the most part.
Yeah.
Standard stuff. But, I don't want to make comparisons between SDFC and Padres because I don't want to pit two teams that I root for against one another. I see the comparisons that are being made, and I understand them. I'm just not going to do that because I don't like pitting things against one another in town. It doesn't need to happen. But it is an inspiring group, man. It really is. The way they just search for solutions and have more often than not found solutions, I think is really a credit to them, how they're built, etc. So now we go into the international break. Next match will be against Minnesota United on September 13th. So it gives us a little bit of a break. Hopefully the FIFA virus doesn't come back to bite this group, which, it already has with Patty McNair earlier this year. Chucky back with L3. Anders is going to play for Denmark, and other guys are going to Spain. So, you got a lot of guys putting in a lot of miles here. Did I tell you I met Luca Bombino's grandparents walking in?
No.
They were
wonderful?
like two old people wearing 27 jerseys of Bombino. Yeah. I was like, gotta be related. Like there's Angelo and who was it? Angelo and
so the Italian side.
Oh yeah. They were so proud of their grandkid. I mean, Angela and Carmelo. And they were so proud of Luca. Like they were just talking about how when he was like 1-2 years old, he was kicking a ball around the family house and such.
So good.
Grew up 45 minutes from LA, came through the LA system. By the way, Cherundolo booed off the pitch at the end of it. I don't know if it was him specifically, but I heard some, Cherundolo out, Dolo out, stuff like that. So I still think they're going to be pretty good. I still think they'll be okay, but that's like the playoffs in a nutshell.
Yeah.
You're not going to get many chances. You got to finish the chances that you have.
Yes. Okay. Couple things, because I have like 5 minutes and then I got to go. One, I'm still looking for an angle on that Chucky goal that makes sense to me. Like every time I see it, it seems like it's going so slow that Lloris should have been able to get, and Lloris just stops.
Took a deflection. I think Lloris thought it was going to go to his left, and it deflected, and it went to his right. So his body was going. I thought Chucky made that one maybe a little bit more difficult than it had to be.
Yeah, it's just like every time I see it, it's just like this slow roller going past Lloris, and I'm like, do something.
I think his body was going one way, and it took a deflection off Tafari.
Second, and this is something I'm going to throw at you, and unless you guys have already covered this in the SDFC podcast, that feel free to hype it up if you have. I saw this weekend they announced Right to Dream San Diego. They put it on Instagram, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna have like some depth. And then I look, and like every picture of every kid's like 8 years old.
Yeah, it's like your daughter.
And I was talking to a friend of my wife's friend, who her son got invited to go to Right to Dream San Diego.
Oh, nice.
He's in like 6th grade. And they were like, yeah, of course we want to do that. And then they found out that like he would have to live there. Like his family lives in Carlsbad. His parents and his siblings live in Carlsbad. And they're like, if he wants to attend this academy, he has to come live at Singing Hills. And they turned it down. They were like, the kid and the family made the decision together of like, we don't want him living apart from the family, even if it's, an hour drive away or whatever. And he turned it down. And I was shocked by that. And I'm like, he didn't really, He wants to go to college and get a soccer scholarship so that he can get a degree for free to do something else. But like soccer professionally is not something that he wants to do. I thought that was really interesting. And it all kind of came together this weekend. So I wanted to mention it. But before we go out, and feel free to respond to any of that stuff as well. Do you want to talk about the Bill Belichick game? Because I have like a quote from an article that I thought was really interesting about it.
I mean, the hype for the North Carolina TCU game was almost as much as there was for any other college football game over the weekend.
It was like Texas, Ohio State, but somehow bigger.
By the way, because we talked about it last week, the Lee Corso stuff was fantastic.
It was really good.
It was really good. You know what wasn't good?
The Barstool stuff, the Portnoy stuff.
Portnoy stuff.
I stayed away from all of it. I think
just like
most of it.
Objectively, why would I? What am I getting from this?
Yeah.
Anyway, not the point. Yeah, I mean, I didn't catch it. I was out paddleboarding, but I caught up with it, and you sent me the clip of Lawrence Taylor, Michael Jordan, Randy Moss was in the house. I mean, it was just an incredible bit of buildup for a game that ended 40-7. Oh, well, that's not a great first impression. All these people, Mia Hamm was there. All these people took time out to go there and watch that.
Mia Hamm was there.
Good luck getting them to go back.
I wanted to read, and I know this is, they're replying to one game that Bill Belichick has ever coached, but Joel Anderson, who I think is great. He's done podcasts. He writes for The Ringer sometimes. He's co-host of the Press Box. He wrote this. He kind of covered the game and the story and Belichick, and this was the end of it. And I thought this was good, and I'm going to try and keep this in mind anytime the Belichick thing comes up later in the season or whatever. Quote: "For now, however, rather than comparing Belichick to his former Patriots self, it may be more apt to liken him to another former NFL great who tried to cap his coaching career with a swing through the college ranks, Bill Walsh. After Walsh won his third Super Bowl with the 49ers in 1989, he resigned at the age of 57. Walsh almost immediately regretted it, thinking that he had squandered a chance to capture at least one more championship. Like Belichick, he tried broadcasting for a year before returning to the sideline at Stanford in 1992. It was actually a homecoming for Walsh, who had gotten his first head coaching opportunity there in 1977. But after 3 seasons, the final 2 with a combined record of 7-14-1, Walsh walked away again. Quote, "The job of a head coach is an exhausting job," he told reporters. "And at this stage in my life, it's time for somebody else to do it." End quote. Walsh was then days away from turning 63. Belichick is a decade older. He's 73. He's furiously trying to turn back the clock, but after one game, returning to college has made him seem further away from his coaching glory days than ever. I like that. Not just comparing him to Bill Belichick, Patriots head coach, but going like, maybe this is the Bill Walsh thing all over again. Yeah. And I like the fact that Bill Walsh, very honestly, after 3 seasons, was like, it's too much for a guy who's 63. People don't realize being a head coach of an NFL team is hard. Being a head coach of a college football program, there's so much more to do. Like the games might be a little easier to coach, but like the recruiting and the managing and everything else, transfer portals now, there's just so much to do. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. I mean, listen, cynically, you can say that Jim Harbaugh was running away from the NCAA.
Yeah.
But Jim Harbaugh, Nick Saban over the last couple of years have all, college coaches have said like, I had enough of this, get me out of here.
Pete Carroll.
I'd rather go someplace else. Like this job is murder. I don't need to be chasing people around with NIL and transfer portals, things like that.
That stuff too.
These are some of the best guys that have ever done it. And they're like, yeah, thanks. Coach K's, guys would coach until they essentially passed away. They're like, nope, we're done. Like we're out of here. This is a totally different sport. So I think you're right. Now he does have a young girlfriend. Hopefully that's keeping Belichick young. I don't know about Belichick. Does he seem like the kind of guy that needs it? Like there are a lot of people who need to be on the sideline because they need it, right? Like the whole Bear Bryant thing. If I stopped coaching, I'd be dead in 6 months. He died in 3 months.
Yeah.
Joe Paterno, right? So certain guys, you worry about that. You worry about that with like Lee Corso. Some of these things give people purpose. And if it's not there anymore, what becomes, I don't know that I ever felt that way about Belichick. I felt like he was really good in the in-between, the gap year between coaching in the pros and coaching in college. I thought he was actually better than I ever would have expected in media. And I thought that was, a nice place for him to go and to provide him with a little bit of purpose. But man wants to be on the sideline, John. Who am I to disagree?
Can I tell you that my thought process around that is that the guys who are like, I lose my purpose if I'm not here coaching on the sidelines, I really believe them when they're the college coaches, right? Because they feel a purpose in taking these young boys and shaping them into men and teaching them the right thing and all that. Belichick was never that. Belichick was the guy who wanted to prove that he was smarter than everyone with his X's and O's. He didn't care about the players. They're just X's and O's on a chalkboard to him, right? Or a whiteboard. Right. So no,
Yeah,
I don't think
I'll
he's that
replace
guy.
you. I'll find
Yeah,
another guy.
exactly. Yeah, I don't think he cares about these kids at all, and I think that's going to make him not be as invested as he needs to be. That and the fact that he's 73 years old, and man, does he look like he's in poor health. What a weird body type. Like, just I don't know. I was
Yeah.
looking at him going like he looks like he could die in a year, and I wouldn't be surprised. And I feel bad saying that, but like he doesn't need to be doing this. He's doing stuff to his legacy that he doesn't need to be doing.
I don't think so. I always think those are temporary statements about legacy.
Agreed.
I will remember him as the Patriot coach, no matter what he does in North Carolina.
Doing stuff. I don't think he's ruining it. I think it's just like it becomes a joke later where it's like,
Yeah.
hey, remember Johnny Unitas, the Chargers quarterback, like stuff like that. Where
Right.
it's
People
like,
remember that. I'm always like, what does that say about you?
right. But, but it just becomes a joke where someone's going to be like Bill Belichick and someone's going to be like, oh, the UNC coach. I was like, remember that? Yeah. But yeah, it's
you really remember stuff. Willie Mays because he stumbled around at Shea Stadium with the Mets for a fucking half a year. I don't know. And then again, it's also week 1, and maybe TCU is really good. And, maybe North Carolina will be okay. Yeah, maybe they will be. Week 1 observations sometimes can be completely ridiculous.
I'm glad we didn't talk about Arch Manning at all.
Terrible. I mean, the only good thing that came out of Arch Manning is some of the memes, some of the AI memes. If his last name wasn't Manning and he'd be working at a Best Buy or working at a Subway. I mean, I thought those were really kind of funny myself watching that game, which I don't know if it delivered or not, if it lived up to the hype, but it was there and it was 2 really good teams and 2 big programs. So I don't know. You know what I do think about though? I know you got to go. I wish the Pac-12 had never broken up.
Me too.
It just bothers me. You know what bothers me? It bothers me that and this is the White House put out a clip of like Saturdays are back, and it just rattled off all these college football programs. It's like Auburn, and like all these places where college football is king. And I was like, this is one of the reasons why the Pac-12 should have stayed together.
Because they're not that.
It represented the West Coast. It just represented the West Coast in a way I think that's important to people who live on the West Coast. I'm not trying to turn this and drag this into another political conversation, but you can't help it when the White House is promoting college football. And essentially it's claiming college football, right? Because they're showing you these places like Auburn and, places, Columbus, they didn't show LA, they didn't show Seattle, they didn't show places like that. And I was thinking, like it's just another reason to think sometimes we're on our own out here, but go chase those dollars, UCLA and USC and Washington and everybody else, and go be geographically where you're not welcome. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. There was actually like there was a Big Ten commercial too that was like showing all the different schools in the Big Ten, and they're like roaming around the country with it, and it just got ridiculous. Like they've done this commercial for years, but now that they have like the California teams and everything, there's like 20 teams, and they have to go across the entire country. And at one point, it's like, what are you doing? Like, just stop. Just list the teams and move on.
Yeah, I don't know. Good luck with all of that. Anyhow, all right. Monday live YouTube. Thank you. Do we have anybody that we want to chat with, or do we need to go? Is anybody
today?
I saw Ben was checking in from Mexico City.
Today is Tuesday. No, there's been some fun in the comments. But I think we're good to leave those comments where they are. Tomorrow we have a really fun show, but I'm not going to promote the guest ahead of time because that's how you get in trouble. It's how you lose guests. That's how they fall through. But we have a guest scheduled for tomorrow that I'm excited about. And, if you want to try and find someone to talk about, Right to Dream San Diego to come in, I think that's an exciting thing. We should try and find a guest who is knowledgeable about that for later this week. But no, outside of that, I'm good.
All right. Padres will play later tonight. So, let all the consternation on the Discord channel begin again. I don't know. That's all I keep saying. Like, the finish line is right there. Got to get to it, though. In as good a shape as possible, I suppose, at this point.
Yeah.
All righty. We'll do it again tomorrow. Thank you all for the support. Again, if you're a subscriber, we appreciate you, or consider a subscription. Front row seat daily, Monday through Friday. It is delivered right to your inbox. All the headlines that you need delivered right there. Exclusive content, all sorts of great stuff happening on the website. Podcasts 5 days a week, at least. Some special content from time to time here as well. Continuing the build. Hopefully something that you can all be proud of. Again, it's us, independent, local, John, myself, each and every day. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and we'll do it again tomorrow.